Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On this occasion, I will present our article entitled Traces of Spices in Indonesian Literary Texts. Spices have actually been written in many Indonesian literary texts, both as short stories, novels, poems, and dramas. For example, Perempuan Pala, Mirah dari Banda, Jembatan Rempah-Rempah, Berlayarlah ke Tidore, Ketika Cengkeh Berbunga, etc. The study of literary criticism in Indonesian literary texts with the subject of spices has also been widely carried out with the publications of a book entitled Sastra Rempah. Spices, which grow and live in Indonesia, have historically traveled thousands of kilometers to reach the people who need spices, such as the nations in Europe since before Christ, which became known as the Spice Road. The world community is more familiar with the Silk Road route than the Spice Road. The Spice Route has influence of the life of Indonesia and the world today. Spices have been traded for centuries. This trade took the route from South Asia to the Middle East and Europe, which was carried out by Arab and Chinese traders. The spices of the Indonesia archipelago are increasingly known to the world. Shipping and trade from East Asia, South Asia, and West Asia to archipelago hunted for high-value spices. Cloves are produced from Ternate, Tidore, Halmahera, Seram, and Ambon. Maize grows a lot on Rune Island in the Banda Islands. Cinnamon, frankincense, camphor from Sumatra and Java. Sandalwood are mostly produced on Timor and Sumba. Pepper is mostly produced from Banten Java, Sumatra, and South Kalimantan. Spices commodities produced in the Maluku Islands in the past were highly valued in the global economy. The explorations of shipping from various parts of the world in search of spices created the Spice Road. The explorations of spices have sparked important scientific discoveries, from the cartographic itinerary to the botanical herbarium and buoyance. But behind that, spices triggered the practice of exploitations of nature. The Banda Islands, which are the origins of the nutmeg spice, gave birth to a sad story in the poems of Ibrahim Gibra and Afrizal Malna. It was Vasco da Gama who set sail for spices in Gibra's poetry. These Portuguese became the first Europeans to arrive in Maluku Islands, which later colonized the archipelago. The conditions behind the birth of Gibra's poem are the dark history of Western colonialism in archipelago, especially in Ternate and Tidore. Although written in a soft language, the message of the poem Berlayarlah ke Tidore still hurts the people of Tidore. Jembatan Rempah Afrizal Malna. Malna is a poet who is quite a genius in the ranks of modern Indonesian writers. He was able to spread the virus to other writers contemporaries and after him, although his poems were considered difficult to understand. Afrizal is a marker of quality literary works. He has written in the form of poetry and short stories, plays, essays, and novels, also about the spices to the west fought over to the point of shedding blood. The typography of Afrizal's poetry is unique with the appearance of prose, flat left and right margins, does not consist of stanzas and lines. The diction chosen is a word with a unique poetic function. Reading Afrizal's poems is reading the correspondence of objects. His poems that oppose form seems to invite us to dialogue with an inanimate object which he makes alive. Such nuances can be found when reading his latest book collections of poems, Museum of Destroying Documents. These objects depict a world of urban society. In the line of Afrizal's poetry, there is a sentence that this woman's fortress with the red rose necklace is the place where the Sultan of Ternate Hairun was imprisoned. What is meant by the bridge from the trucks of the fortress of women wearing red roses is the Castella Fort in Sultanate of Ternate, which is an extraordinary story, namely the struggle for independence of the people of Ternate who hold pride. Castella Fort, which holds the pride of the people of Ternate, was originally named Nostra Senora de Rosario, which means beautiful woman with a rose necklace, which was taken as a symbolism typical of Afrizal's poem. Although it seems that the origin of the words is skewed, Afrizal's poem entitled Rempah-rempah has a unique characteristic with the beginning of the sentence in alphabetical order starting from A, then B, C, and so on. From the meaning that emerges from the poem, it appears that Afrizal as a writer is very concerned with the suffering of his people related to the explorations of spices by adventurers from the West. There are many ways to understand the meaning of Afrizal's poem. For example, by asking why the title is Rempah-rempah. There are explicitly 5 bridges that connect poet's ideas in this poem with the social reality that exists in society. Conclusion. Traces of spices in Indonesian literary texts in the poetry of Gibra and Malna prove that writers have sensitivity to the suffering of their people related to the explorations of spices by Western nations in Indonesia. The way the writer expresses his empathy by mentioning the names of spices and the name of spice explorers from the West in his poetry. Among the many types of spices, there are 2 that are very popular, namely nutmeg and cloves, both of which inspired writers to create the title of their work. The structures of Gibra's poetry has a narrative story, while the structures of Malna's poetry resembles prose with neat right and left margins. The content of the poem tells about the suffering of the colonized people who were deprived of their spices. Thank you.